Thanks, Johnny Cooter.
Joe and I committed lizard manslaughter today. If I had just said lizard slaughter, one word, no one would know what I mean. So that's why I'm phrasing it that way. Joe says it was more like lizard torture, but please know that it was on accident. We did not purposely torture a lizard today. Our HVAC broke yesterday, so today we had a guy come fix it. He diagnosed the problem and asked for our permission to begin the repairs, which we approved. I asked him if he needed us to do anything else, and he instructed us to close the windows because he would have the system cooling in under 10 minutes, which I thought was a bit of a humble brag, but then it really was working in under 10 minutes, so kudos to that guy for knowing his worth. Joe and I each set about closing the windows. After I closed one of the bedroom windows, I noticed something wiggling in the windowsill. Something slender, about 2 inches, and green. It was not a worm. It was the tail of a lizard. It was only the tail of a lizard. It was the tail of a lizard that I had presumably just accidentally chopped off when I shut the window. Maybe it had gotten caught between the 2 window panes. I exclaimed loud enough for Joe to come see what was up. I pointed at the still wiggling lizard tail, and he took out his phone and began to take a video. Neither of us could see the rest of the lizard. Joe said,
Their tails grow back.
and this was comforting. I showed him where the tail had fallen from, and we figured the lizard had made it out of the window to relative safety, albeit tailless. And I didn't feel too bad. I moved to lock the window, and this shifted my line of sight, and that's when I saw it. That's also when I screamed a little scream and turned away. The lizard's body wasn't near to where the tail had fallen from. It was on the other side. It must have dragged its body over there while we were distracted with its disembodied, wiggling tail.
Oh, no.
Joe said.
Don't look. Don't look.
But I did look. Is it dead? I said.
No, it's not dead.
Joe said. I looked closer. It was breathing. It was stuck. And at first we thought that maybe it would be okay. But then we saw that its lower body had been crushed between 2 window panes. It didn't have legs anymore. I cried out again. We both tacitly knew that this lizard needed to die, and that it might have to be at our hands. We could not leave him like this. My mind instantly went to a story that Joe sometimes tells about having to bludgeon a mangled but still alive bird that his cat had dragged in. And I knew in that moment that he would take care of this for me. And I felt a surge of gratitude for Joe. My husband, who would save me from having to kill this half-dead lizard. He could do this. He would do this. I will for sure hold this up as an example in the future when people are weighing, the pros and cons of marriage. I can't guarantee that your partner will kill a lizard, so you don't have to, but mine would. And I love him for a lot of reasons, one of which is this. We quickly strategized. Did we think the lizard would make it out alive? No. We didn't think so. We moved the window panes to at least try to free it so that we could put it out of its misery without getting lizard brains all over our windows. Do you think that lizards can feel misery? I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure they can experience fear, though, and fear is pretty miserable. Anyways, all that did was let it fall further in between the two panes, smearing its own blood on the glass as it fell. I used to have a cat who we called Wall Cat because my mom had to cut through the drywall in her closet to get him out. A feral cat had crawled into our attic to give birth, convalesced, and then left the attic, carrying all of her kittens out one by the scruff of her neck, except this one who had fallen down in the wall where the mother cat couldn't reach it. The meowing was maddening, like a nonstop baby crying. My mother called a few pest control people who said the best option was to let it die, unless she wanted to cut through the drywall. So she cut through the drywall. And I got a cat that had been weaned far too young and tried for years to nurse on the drawstrings of my hoodie and my earlobes. The wall cat. This lizard situation did not seem to call for the demolition of a window, and making that decision felt really bad. Now the lizard was closer to death, still alive, but unable to use its two front legs to pull itself to freedom as it had tried before. We remained unsure of what to do and exchanged a few ideas. We tried a few things, moving the panes, shimmying, etc., and we were able to get the lizard half free again, but still dying and still stuck. I suggested we get a plastic bag and try to forcibly remove it by hand so that we, but really Joe, could take it outside and either A, kill it, or B, release it to live on, maybe, but most likely get eaten by a bird. Joe agreed. I said I had to leave the room. Joe also agreed. I sat on the couch and tried not to think about the mutilated lizard while Joe went about this business. And soon enough, the lizard was outside. Not dead, Joe reported.
Not dead.
but likely it soon would be. I cannot say today that I did no harm. I can say that I will try to remember to check the windows for errant lizards in the future. And I can say that causing this lizard harm distressed me enough to be up at 4 a.m. writing this story about it. I kept that wall cat for a long time. 13 or 14 years at least, even though he was kind of a shitty cat. That has to be worth something too.
Originally, Emily asked me to write my version of the story separately, but after reading through her version, I thought this an impossible task. After all I could add are the gory details, which nobody really needs. It was gross. There was blood. There were limbs. Instead, I offered to provide commentary and additional information. She shrugged and said,
Sure, whatever.
As I read this account of the lizard, I was horrified at the part where I take out my phone and film the tail. What a heartless chap, this Joe. But that's only because this innocent act of curiosity was followed by the body horror of the lizard, wiggling, missing significant parts of his body. It's an interesting case of the retrospective nature of horror. The meaning of the thing only comes from a later event. If I had just filmed the tail and that was the end of the story, well, I might be forgiven. We'd have laughed and moved on. But I filmed the tail, and then I found the body, causing the filming of the tail to become horrific, like the work of some war criminal. I wish now that I'd killed the lizard as soon as possible, but I didn't know that it was beyond saving. I have mercy killed a handful of animals when needed, and I've always found it unpleasant. But being so close to this lizard, imagining that it was afraid, it made it harder to kill out of mercy, which is the exact opposite of what the situation needed. And in the end, when I finally went to extract the lizard on the other side of the window in the backyard, I had to pull it through the narrow gap in the window. And I really, really had to yank his poor, damaged body out. His last moments were being manhandled. And trying to save the lizard had only caused more harm. The AC repair guy was still out in the yard, working on our machine. I felt the need to explain myself. I told him, I have to pull a lizard through the window we accidentally killed. And he stared at me. And I said, it's sad.
Very sad.
He said in his thick Texas accent, or whatever that was. He was a classic type, an old white man with a white pack of Marlboro 100s in his shirt pocket. I imagined he sang in a rockabilly band, maybe on this stage. I went back inside. Hours later, in the shower, I was thinking about something else, and then realized how strange it was that I'd already forgotten about the horrible lizard incident. How long would it be before I get it forever? Before I forget it forever? I told Emily about my realization, and she asked me to write her version of the story. Sure, I said, and I never did. But later that night, I was thinking that from then on, whenever we closed a window, we should tap on it in case any lizards need to escape safely, give them fair warning. Emily thought this was a good idea. This was something we would remember to do from then on, always protecting the lizards in the window, never doing harm again. Of course, that too, I've forgotten about. Until now. For a little bit. Thank you.